Hey everyone, this is Derrick Broze of the Conscious Resistance Network, and today we're going to talk about the blowback, the repercussions of the COVID-19 pandemic emergency, and how I've said in my last few videos, if you haven't caught those and caught my series of videos on this situation and what it really means, you're going to want to go back and watch the last couple videos, including the Freedom Cells, How to Survive and Thrive During a Pandemic, which is full of solutions, which, by the way, is what we need right now. But in those videos, we talk about how typically governments, the corporate state, the technocratic state will always seize more power. And we're already witnessing that, not only on the national level with the declaration of emergencies, with quarantines, with certain nations like Italy and Spain and others completely locking down, with people facing fines for going out in public, and of course with the discussion of rushing forward a vaccine to come save the day. And so I want to give you an example of that that's happening here in the city that I'm currently residing in, at least for the next 12 hours or so, Houston, Texas. Before we do that, though, I want to remind you guys to bookmark theconsciousresistance.com. My friends, I've been doing this for 10 years now. I've been doing various forms of activism, hitting the streets, passing out flyers, DVDs, making videos, writing essays, writing books, running for mayor of Houston, trying to wake people up in all kinds of different ways. You can find me on Mind, you can find me on DTube, find me on Discord. Join my text list, because the thing is, on the text list, if I get shut off social media, if the shit does hit the fan, I will be able to text you at least, and we can communicate that way, and it's a safe and secure way. You can support us in all kinds of different ways. Just check out the little ads we got on the sidebar. Come over here and vote in our poll about how you're changing your daily habits. And I do want to say, if you can support my efforts, patreon.com/DerrickBroze, so I can continue to do this, continue to produce documentaries, and during these trying times, continue to bring you the truth about what's going on, as I'm going to show you today. So, today in Houston, there was a vote to extend an emergency declaration indefinitely in the city of Houston. This is a crisis. Houston City Council extends emergency declaration indefinitely. There's the mayor of Houston, Sylvester Turner, who is tied with a lot of different people. You know, I know some of you might use the word globalists. You could say that. He's tied with the Democratic National Party for sure. He's definitely a part of the elite, I would say, and has been here for, this is his second term now. He's was here during Harvey, now he's here during the COVID-19 pandemic. And one of the things I ran on when I was in office, when I was running for office last year, which I didn't run because I actually wanted to be the mayor, I was kind of scared of it. I ran because people need to wake up and to a lot of the issues that we're talking about here. For example, I found out that the mayor of Houston is basically a dictator. Houston has one of the strongest mayoral positions in the country. The mayor out here can basically set the entire agenda for the city council, and this controls what issues can be discussed officially, and which agenda items can be voted on, which limits the other council members and basically makes them ineffective. Sure, they can do some things in their district and they're part of the city, but overall, they cannot override the power of the mayor or really stop him in any kind of effective, meaningful way. So I tried to call attention to that, and now we're seeing that play out even further, and to an even new degree that I haven't seen before. But I want to make all the facts clear, so let's get into this. City Council on Tuesday extended Houston's emergency health declaration, reflecting a warning by Sylvester Turner, Mayor Sylvester Turner, that the public health crisis fueled by the spread of COVID-19 will not go away anytime soon. And I want you to listen to this in the way he says this. This is the mayor on Tuesday, just today. This is a crisis. I hope there's no one around this table that's questioning that. And it's a crisis that's going to be with us for several weeks, if not several months. And I hope no one is questioning that. Nobody's allowed to question. The measure gives the mayor power to suspend rules and regulations and to undergo additional health measures that prevent or control the spread of the disease, such as quarantine or setting up emergency shelters. Similar orders have been issued after hurricanes. So look, let's make this clear. The mayor has done this before during Hurricane Harvey. That doesn't make it any less disturbing when we look at the language of what this thing can do. Let's just look at this one section here. Suspend rules and regulations to undergo additional health measures that prevent or control the spread of disease. So undergo additional health measures. We'll talk about what those things are in a moment and what they could be. Last week, there was an emergency declared in Houston, and so this is just the extension of it, but this is an indefinite extension, which does give the mayor emergency powers. This is after the first case was found in the area due to community spread, but other than that, Houston doesn't have a lot of cases. They did cancel the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo, which is kind of a big thing out here for some people. Now, the Chronicle says some council members took issue with the indefinite nature of the extension. Council member Greg Travis, who railed against Turner's decision last week to cancel the rodeo, proposed making it only a 1-week extension and having weekly votes to extend it based on new developments. Imagine that, trying to limit the mayor's power and say, hey, how about we just come back here once a week, or even if we have to Zoom each other or Skype each other in, and we hold a vote to decide, hey, is it necessary to keep extending this? But instead, the mayor and the city attorney argued for it being indefinite, and they claimed, oh, well, the law is clear that it backs up the mayor. It's like, okay, well, this is the problem. People think that the law makes something just. If the law says, slavery is legal, then it's okay, right? The law says it. If the law says that turning somebody into a dictator is the law, then you ignore the law. You remove it. You go around it. You do something better. You make sense. You follow, common sense and respect people's sovereignty. You don't invade that or coerce them or use violence on them or aggression on them. Councilmember Mike Knox was the only other council member to support Travis's motion. He said there has been a lack of communication from the mayor to the council members. So there was also a little bit of back and forth. I'll show you guys in a moment, but let's see here. The emergency measure ultimately passed 15-1 with Travis alone in opposition. So Mike Knox at first helped him oppose it and kind of spoke up, but apparently, overall the measure passed 15-1, but when it came to the amendment, Travis and Knox voted against everybody else. They were the only two people to try to limit the mayor's power, and then Travis alone was the only one that tried to stop this emergency declaration. He does seem to be skeptical. I'll say this, if you go to his Twitter account, he seems like he doesn't think it's, I don't want to say if he thinks it's real or not, but he definitely thinks and can see that there is some hype around it and that some people are blowing it out of proportion to some degree. Not to say that it's not traveling fast or that people aren't getting sick. Of course, my opinion is still developing on this. I'm open to all discussion. I just think what really matters at this point is this information. What I'm showing you is what's happening is that they are taking advantage of it. Travis pointed out that the council itself was a group of 16 people and was breaking the president's guidance about meeting in groups of 10 or more people. Then let's look at here. Here's the city's actual press release. City extends emergency disaster declaration. Mayor Turner cancels events through April and announces new public meeting guidelines. What's important, though, they voted to indefinitely extend the proclamation of a local state of disaster due to a public health disaster. They passed the measure with 15-1. The order allows the mayor to make decisions to work with the county, state, and federal officials to contain and mitigate COVID-19 spread and protect members of the public. It's gravely important for us to take definitive steps to slow the spread, the mayor said. The measures we have put in place will help save lives. So he also... So this extended his 7-day disaster declaration last week, and now they gave him an indefinite extension. It also cancels all city-produced, sponsored, and permitted events through the end of April. So they're not even just going to the end of March. They're canceling things for the next 2 months. Starting Tuesday, March 24th, no proclamation presentations, no city business, yada yada, closing the library. So they're starting to close down the whole city. Right now, they're saying that they're not going to lock things down. They're just closing things down for 15 days. And, yesterday, I will say that the proclamation that Donald Trump issued was called the mayor's, something, I can't remember the full title, I don't have it in front of me, but it was basically said for 15 days. So for whatever we might be concerned about, governments seizing power from the local to state and federal level, just be aware, yesterday was the 16th. That means to the end of April, they're saying this kind of, social distancing, only 10 people at a time, is meant to stop the flow and the spread of this virus. Now, if they claim it's unsuccessful, or if it truly is unsuccessful, then they're going to take more measures, and they might not even wait till the end of April. So I do think there's a probability that the mayor here in Houston, as well as other cities, will shut down all being outside. Even in Italy, though, I will say, for those who haven't heard my interview that I put up the other day on Freethinker Radio, we talked to my friend in Italy, and he said, you're still allowed to go out for a walk for a little bit as long as you're not with anybody else. So maybe you'll be allowed to do that, but you won't be able to go to work. You won't be able to just go outside generally, or you'll be shamed for it while they work on a vaccine for at least 15 days. Are you prepared for that? Are you stocked for that? Are you deciding to stay home? Are you deciding to exit and build, go somewhere else? What is your plan? Do you have a plan? These are things to think about if you don't feel comfortable with the idea of being locked in or forced quarantined. Maybe some of you think that's the best mode of action, and that's okay. I have friends who are like, I'm going to stay home with my kids. We're going to ride it out and do this. Do what you think is best. But just know that that's likely coming. And there's been plenty of discussion now about stopping interstate travel, to the point that the Trump administration has had to say, those are rumors, just like the mayor of Houston's office keeps saying, it's rumors that we're going to shut down the city. Don't believe these things. So I want to play you just a little clip of the actual emergency meeting today. This is Councilmember Greg Travis, the one who is speaking against the mayor. And I will also add, he is one of only one or two or three people, but the only one that consistently, well, other than another retired council member, who is standing up against 5G in Houston. So check this out.
Thank you, Mayor. And now back to my amendment. We're conflating the arguments. Nobody's talking about fluidity. Nobody's talking about executive power. What we're talking about is having this come back before council at a normal council meeting that we have every week so that we can have discussions to see whether it's worth going forward in the same manner. Nobody's saying that the mayor doesn't have the executive powers during that time. What we're saying is that it comes back before council for approval. So those who are saying we're taking away the powers of the mayor during this time, he will have them for 7 days, every 7 days, until that moment that we think otherwise. But yet we're out here saying, oh no, he has to be able to act. He can act. But we also hear people talking about communications. There have been no communications. Yesterday, the other day, y'all had a discussion on communications. Nobody's called me. Nobody's told me anything. But you know what I've done? I've spent my last 7 days looking at the CDC and NIH websites, educating myself. Not on this disease, but on other diseases as well. It was good use of my time. But nobody from the Mayor's Office of Administration consulted me, and I've talked to other council members. They weren't communicated with either. Last night was a shock to me. And that I had my phone ringing off. I had text messages and emails of people saying, what the hell's going on? Well, I couldn't tell what the hell was going on because nobody told me. I would just like to have a council meeting once a week where we sit there and discuss this. Have it on the agenda. I don't think it's too much to ask. But if we're going to be talking about, and I didn't want to get into all these other things, but if we're going to get into them, let's talk about that. The communications is what I'm talking about. That would force us to have a communication each week here on council to discuss what has happened last week, what we think will happen next week, and still give the mayor the powers to do what he needs to do. It's not like we're reducing his powers. We're just saying is you got to come before council for an extension. And if we're going to do it, if 7 days is not good, then 30 days is. I mean, arbitrary date, 7, 30, let's make it 90. We're talking arbitrary dates. So if we're going to do that, let's just say a weekly council meeting. We come here, and if you say we can't do that, folks, we're already violating President Trump's 10-person rule. Look around us. And we're not 6 feet away. And by the way, if we were serious about this, we should shut down Metro immediately. It's a cesspool. I drove by a bus today with all these people on there. You don't know if those people are sick or not. And there are more than 10 people in that bus. And yet we have that ongoing. We're shutting down restaurants. We're putting people out of work. And I didn't want to get into all this. I was just going to talk about my 7-day extension because that's what's before us. But we conflated the argument, so let's conflate it. If we're going to sit here and talk about these things, I don't have a problem with certain precautions. I don't have a problem with any of it. But then let's do it. If we're going to be serious, then let's be serious. And we are not shutting down Metro. Metro still runs. Airports are still open. We still have people congregating in places, and yet we say, well, these are okay and these are not. And then I say we should always have done a cost-benefit analysis. We should be discussing that. Oh, no, David, you don't want to hear the rest of this?
No, let Councilmember Travis continue to speak. Then you continue to speak. I think you're making a case for yourself. Go ahead on. Continue to speak, Councilmember Travis.
Well, I'm making the case that if we're going to do this, let's do this. But let's do it all the way. And we're not doing it all the way. We're picking and choosing winners and losers. And here's a prime example. Last night, we automatically shut down the restaurants. We didn't give thought to the fact they have all that product on hand that will expire over the next 2 weeks. We didn't think about the people who are hourly workers who are going to be out of work. I had a lady the other day, I was at a bar on Saturday, and she was a bartender, and she has an 8-year-old son who has health issues. And she says, if we shut this down, I've lost my job. If there's no place for me to go, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'll lose my house. My son won't get the medicines. I'll be off my insurance in here. And I'll have a $6,000 copay through Obamacare. She is concerned about her life, and she's a bartender. She made good money. She made and tips and all this stuff. We're not thinking about these people. And we say we are, but if the argument we have today is that this is going to save lives, that works on every other disease out there. Tuberculosis, hepatitis, chickenpox, smallpox. We will use this argument every year, every month to get what we want to have done. And I think that's not a very good argument. We need to be rational. We need to look at the CDC website. That's where you should get your information. Don't get it from the media. Don't get it from me. Get it from the CDC website and get it from the NIH. And if you read their website, you'll probably be calm and we won't have all this hysteria. Thank you.
Councilmember Knox.
Well, I'd like to stay focused back on the amendment again. This fluidity of movement, the fluidity of the situation actually makes an argument why we need a weekly meeting. Although, Mayor, you're talking about communication. The fact of the matter is, my comments, by the way, regarding the rodeo has nothing to do with the rightness or wrongness of it. The fact of the matter is, you knew this information and chose not to share it with us until you made a press conference. Governor Abbott yesterday just basically removed the Open Meetings Act, so we can meet and talk about things in groups without fear of violating the Open Records Act. I saw it on the news. I've got an article here on my phone where he's done that. So I guess the point of this amendment is to require the mayor to give us all a weekly briefing about what's going on. Sure, you can make decisions all day long, every single day, but at some point we need to know as council members what you've decided to do. We don't have to agree with it. We don't have to support it.
Well, I think you guys get the point now. I'll go ahead and link that in the video description. You can see the whole city council video if you want. And council member Travis were the only ones that argued against that. There's some clips that are making their way around Twitter, around the Houston area by Urban Reform, showing the whole discussion. But it's just, my point was, this is an example, guys, of how local governments, state governments, and of course the federal government are using this crisis, telling people you can never question it, and seeking power indefinitely. Now, I think that under what it says, that the mayor can do what he needs to do to undergo additional health measures that prevent or control the spread of the disease, that they say right here, to do whatever they can to mitigate and contain it, that this could potentially include mandatory vaccinations. So, we're going to call the mayor's office and find out for ourselves. Let's see if we can do this. Alright, so we're going to call the mayor's deputy communications director to see if, /press secretary, if there are any plans as part of this emergency declaration to allow for mandatory vaccination. So let's check this out.
This is Mary.
Mary, hello, this is Derrick with KPFT, 90.1 KPFT. Do you have a moment for a question?
Yes, how can I help you?
I was just reading the city's press release about today's emergency disaster declaration. Mm-hmm. And I was just curious as far as, I want to make sure I read this correctly. It's quoted as saying, City Council vote to indefinitely extend the proclamation. Allows Mayor Turner to make decisions to work with county, state, and federal officials to contain and mitigate COVID-19 spread and protect members of the public. I'm curious, have there been any discussions with county, state, or federal officials regarding the a potential vaccine for COVID yet?
Not that I'm aware of. There is no vaccine for COVID-19 at this point, as far as I know.
Are there any specific plans for when a vaccine is developed? As far as I know, that testing is supposed to start next week, but is there any specific plans regard to, vaccination programs?
That question would probably be better directed at the health department or with federal partners. I mean, there are no local plans to create a vaccine. That doesn't happen. There's no national vaccine, the last that I personally read and watched news coverage. So you perhaps might think about reaching out to the health department or federal authorities.
Oh, well, just to clarify, what I'm asking specifically about, not the development of the vaccine, but as far as the city's plans for distribution of that vaccine, or for getting that to the public. Are there plans for that in place already?
There's a COVID-19 vaccine that we would distribute.
I'm saying, if and when a vaccine is developed, does the city have plans for the distribution of that, like an action plan, a contingency plan for how this would get to the public? Is my specific question.
Well, my answer is that there is no vaccine, and it would be premature to talk about how we're going to get a vaccine to the public when there is not one.
Okay, so until
the health professionals are working every day to mitigate and contain COVID-19. They are the professionals, and they know how to distribute, whether it's equipment and supplies to help the community. That conversation is not a conversation that would be helpful for me to have with you at this time.
Okay. Final question is, again, because I'm reading about the clinical trials starting yesterday. So
Okay, Derrick, I'm gonna ask you to please direct your call to health professionals. Well, I've already told you that there's no one in this country, as far as we know publicly, that has a vaccine. And so to try to get me to say something about a vaccine is really pointless on both of our ends.
well, I was just trying to see if there are specific plans. I'm not trying to get you to say anything. If there's nothing, then that's what you're saying. So I just was trying to clarify. But all right, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for your call. Mhm.
All right, so that's how that went. That was Mary Benton, Deputy Communications Director, Press Secretary for the Mayor's Office. You guys saw how or heard how that went, and that's what I can find out now. There's nothing. Seems like there's no plans. At least they don't want to discuss any plans if there are plans until a vaccination is made. But I think we should just be aware of this. Like the council members said, it's not a good idea to just give indefinite power to any politician, ever local, state, or federal, and including the fact that this is a pandemic and a health situation. We don't know what steps they will go to contain and mitigate that. And I think that because when I ran for mayor, one of the issues I talked about is standing against mandatory vaccinations, and they treated me like I was crazy for this topic, for even bringing that up to the table. And now we hear with the situation that if a vaccine is developed, I would not put it past the city officials to try to make it mandatory, or at least we know for sure they're going to promote it very heavily, no matter how well it's been tested. So just an example of what's happening in Houston and is likely happening everywhere around the country right now in different forms. So please pay attention, spread the word, push back where you can, have a contingency plan for whatever is going to happen, and be safe. Till next time, remember, you are powerful, you are beautiful, and you are free. Peace.